Across the vast plains of Mesopotamia, where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers embraced the fertile earth, stood the majestic city of Uruk. Its gleaming stone walls stretched as far as the eye could see, and its towers seemed to graze the heavens. This was a city of wealth and splendor, a cradle of commerce and culture. Yet it was also a realm of a monarch whose name inspired both awe and fear. Gilgamesh. 2/3 god and 1/3 man, towered above his peers. Taller than the mightiest warriors and unmatched in strength, he was a giant among mortals. His piercing eyes and jet-black hair made his presence impossible to ignore, and wherever he walked, the air grew still. Seated on a throne carved from alabaster and inlaid with gold, he ruled with an iron will, enforcing his decrees without mercy. Though the people of Uruk took pride in their city and their king, they began to feel the heavy hand of his rule. In his relentless pursuit of glory and power, Gilgamesh had cast aside compassion and fairness. He ordered backbreaking labor to build monuments that showcased his greatness, indifferent to the exhaustion of those who toiled beneath the sun. Young men were conscripted into endless military campaigns, and daughters from noble and common homes alike were summoned to fulfill the whims of the king. "Our king is like a storm that never ends," murmured the elders in the squares. "His actions leave us breathless, and his ambition threatens to devour us all." In the markets, once bustling with laughter, tension now hung in the air. Merchants spoke in hushed tones, afraid that any stray word might reach the ears of the sovereign. Artists and poets who once sang praises of Gilgamesh's triumphs now questioned whether their verses merely fed his boundless ego. One evening, in a modest home on the outskirts of the city, a mother comforted her child. "Why are you crying, mother?" the little one asked. "Because our king has forgotten how to love his people," she replied, sorrow clouding her gaze. "But one day, the gods will hear us." And indeed, the prayers of Uruk began to rise to the heavens. In sacred temples, priests offered sacrifices and chanted solemn hymns, pleading for the gods to intervene. "Anu, great father of the heavens, and you, Aruru, mother of creation, hear the cries of your people," they pleaded. "Send us a sign, a glimmer of hope to restore the balance that has been lost." Meanwhile, inside his palace, Gilgamesh remained unaware of the suffering he had caused. Surrounded by luxury and flatterers, he believed himself untouchable. "There is no one who can match me," he boasted arrogantly at his feasts. "I am the strongest, the wisest, and the bravest. The gods have blessed me. My name will live on forever." Yet, deep within him, unease had begun to take root. His sleep was disturbed by unsettling dreams, visions of shadows trailing him, voices calling to him from afar. Concerned about the kingdom's direction, his closest advisors tried to reach him. "My lord," one said, carefully, "the people are weary. They need relief. Perhaps it would be wise to ease their burdens and hear their pleas." Gilgamesh looked at him with disdain. Relief? Needs? A king does not falter because of complaints. If they wish to live under my protection, they must meet my demands. I will accept nothing less. And so, the rift between the king and his people grew deeper. Men began avoiding the main streets, afraid of being forced into labor. Women prayed their daughters would go unnoticed by the royal envoys. The joy that once filled Uruk had faded, replaced by a heavy silence of resignation. In the heavens above, the gods watched. From his celestial throne, Anu turned to Aruru. "The sorrow of Uruk's people is too great," he said solemnly. "Gilgamesh has forgotten his true purpose." Aruru nodded, worry clouding her gaze. "We must act," she replied. "I will create a being equal in strength, someone to challenge his pride, one who will lead him back to the right path and restore harmony to the world." In the high heavens where the clouds brushed the realms of the divine, Anu summoned a sacred council. The gods gathered in a radiant circle around him. Their faces bore deep concern as they gazed upon the mortal world. The prayers and laments from Uruk had reached their ears, and the balance between the divine and the human teetered on the edge. "The people's sorrow calls out to us," Anu declared in a grave voice. "Gilgamesh, our vision of greatness among men, has lost his way. His unchecked power has sown pain instead of prosperity." Enlil, god of wind and earth, nodded in agreement. "We granted Gilgamesh strength and wisdom to guide his people, but his pride has clouded his judgment. This imbalance must be corrected." All eyes turned to Aruru, the great mother goddess, creator of humankind. Her gaze shimmered with both compassion and resolve. "If the problem lies in a king who has forgotten his purpose, then the solution is to create one who will remind him of his humanity," she proposed. Anu bowed his head in approval. "Aruru, your hands shaped the first man. We must entrust you now with the task of forming a being who can stand as Gilgamesh's equal, someone who can challenge him and lead him back to the right path." Without delay, Aruru descended to the earth. She made her way to a remote corner of the world, far from the reach of men, where nature remained wild and untouched. There, in a clearing encircled by ancient trees, she knelt and stretched her hands over the fertile ground. She gathered a handful of damp clay and began to mold it with great care and intention. Her divine fingers shaped a strong and sturdy frame, breathing into it the spark of life. As she worked, she whispered ancient chants, words woven with power, pulsing in rhythm with the heartbeat of the earth itself. "I give you the strength of the wild beasts, the grace of the gazelle, and the courage of the lion," she murmured. "May your heart remain pure and your spirit unbreakable." With each movement, the figure grew more defined. Powerful muscles, solid limbs, and a face that radiated the calm of deep forests. His hair flowed like an untamed mane, and his skin bore the warm hue of the earth from which he sprang. When her creation was complete, Aruru leaned in and gently blew upon the clay man. A soft breeze swept through the clearing, and the leaves above rustled in harmony. The figure's eyes opened slowly, revealing a brilliant, curious light within. For the very first time, Enkidu drew breath, the crisp air filling his lungs. He rose with graceful ease, taking in the world around him with wonder in his eyes. The creatures of the forest, far from fearing him, approached without hesitation. A deer brushed against his hand, a bird landed lightly on his shoulder, and a distant wolf howled in greeting. Aruru watched with quiet satisfaction. Enkidu, I made you as a reflection of nature in its purest form. You will be the balance this world needs. Through you, Gilgamesh will learn the lessons he has forgotten. But her task was not yet complete. The goddess knew she had to protect her creation and guide his first steps. She reached out and touched Enkidu's forehead, transferring instinctive knowledge of the creatures and plants surrounding him. Though he did not know the language of men, he understood the delicate harmony of the natural world. Live among the animals, learn from them, and share in their freedom, Aruru instructed him. In time, your path will lead you to a destined encounter. With one final, tender glance, the goddess faded into the air, returning to the celestial realms. Enkidu remained behind, but he felt no fear or loneliness. The forest was his home now, and every living being his kin. Meanwhile, in Uruk, the people carried on with their routines, unaware of the threads of fate being woven around them. No one could have guessed that deep in the wilds, someone had been born who would soon change their lives and the fate of the entire kingdom. Enkidu ran through the meadows, feeling the grass beneath his feet and the breeze on his face. He drank from clear rivers and nourished himself with wild fruits. His abilities were astonishing. He could race beside gazelles, climb trees with the ease of a monkey, and fight with the strength of a bull. But destiny had greater plans for him. Though he lived in harmony, a stirring had begun within, a feeling that something awaited him beyond the forest's edge. From above, the gods watched closely. The seed has been planted, and Leo remarked. Now we must wait and see how this meeting unfolds. Anu nodded. I trust Enkidu will fulfill the purpose he was made for, and perhaps along the way, not only will Gilgamesh learn a valuable lesson, but both may discover a part of themselves they never knew existed. And so, as the sun dipped beyond the horizon, painting the sky in golden hues, the world braced for the inevitable encounter between the tyrant king and the wild man. Two opposing forces, destined to collide, and perhaps, in doing so, bring each other into balance. The prelude to an epic tale that would echo through the ages had begun. The sun disappeared slowly behind the hills, casting an orange glow across the desert. A young hunter, known throughout Uruk for his skill, moved cautiously through the underbrush. For days, he had sensed something unusual. His traps were repeatedly found broken, and the animals he usually hunted had vanished without a trace. That afternoon, as he checked one of his snares, he heard a rustle behind him. Turning swiftly, his eyes widened in awe and fear. Just a few steps away stood a man with a wild, untamed appearance. His body covered in thick hair radiated strength and vitality. The stranger's eyes gleamed with a fierce, primal intelligence. The hunter watched in stunned silence as the man gently freed an antelope from the trap with surprising ease and care. The surrounding animals showed no fear. Instead, they approached him as though he were one of their own. Not daring to make a sound, the hunter slowly backed away until he felt far enough to be safe. Then turning on his heel, he bolted toward Uruk, heart pounding in his chest. Once in the city, he went straight to his father, a well-respected figure in the community. "Father, I saw an extraordinary being out in the wild," he said, breathless. "He's like a man, but he lives with the beasts and possesses incredible strength. He destroys our traps and sets the animals free. If this continues, we won't have anything left to hunt." Concerned, the hunter's father brought the matter before the priests of Anu's temple. Gathered in council, they debated what should be done. "If this man keeps interfering, many families will lose their means of survival," one elder warned. "We must find a way to deal with him without provoking his wrath." It was then that a priest offered a suggestion. "I know someone who may be able to help us. Shamhat, a priestess of Ishtar's temple, is wise and graceful. Perhaps she can approach this being and bring him into our world." Shamhat, renowned for both her beauty and her deep understanding of the human soul, listened carefully to the request. "If this man is truly as you say, his spirit is untainted, free of malice," she reflected. "I will do what I can to reach him and guide him toward civilization." The next morning, Shamhat set out for the wilderness, accompanied by the hunter who had seen Enkidu. After several hours of travel, they arrived at the place where the wild man was known to appear. They decided to wait quietly, trusting that nature would unfold its course. It wasn't long before Enkidu emerged from the trees, moving with the fluid grace of a wild cat. When he spotted Shamhat, he paused, intrigued. Never before had he seen anyone like her. Her fine garments, graceful posture, and kind smile stood in stark contrast to everything he knew. Shamhat approached slowly, careful not to make any sudden movements. "Hello," she said gently, though she knew he likely wouldn't understand the words. She offered him a piece of bread and a bowl of beer. Enkidu sniffed the bread curiously, and after a moment of hesitation, took a bite. The taste was unfamiliar, but pleasing. The beer, sweet and frothy, brought a warm sensation through his body. For several days, Shamhat stayed with Enkidu in the wilderness. She taught him to communicate through gestures and simple words. They shared meals, laughter, and long quiet moments filled with mutual understanding. Enkidu felt drawn to her, not just physically, but through a deep connection that awakened parts of himself he had never known. The desert animals watched from afar. Gradually, they began to drift away from Enkidu. They sensed a shift within him. He was no longer entirely one of them. Enkidu noticed the distance growing between him and the creatures of the wild, and a wave of sadness settled over him. "Why do my friends avoid me?" his eyes seemed to ask. Understanding his sorrow, Shamhat explained, "You're beginning a new journey. You're learning what it means to be human. You haven't lost your essence, but now you have a chance to see the world through new eyes." Determined to explore this newfound part of himself, Enkidu agreed to follow her to a nearby shepherd's camp. There, he was met with cautious stares, but Shamhat's presence reassured the people. They gave him clothes to wear and showed him how to put them on. At first, the feeling of fabric against his skin felt strange, but he quickly adjusted. Enkidu listened with fascination, eager to grasp the meaning behind every tale. He learned about working together, about farming and celebrating the seasons. With each passing day, his vocabulary grew, and his understanding of human life deepened. One night, an old shepherd approached him. "I see a great spirit in you," he said. "Though you come from the wild, you have a place among us. There is much you can give, and much still to learn." Shamhat remained his guide, his companion. She taught him songs and showed him how to savor life's simple pleasures. The sweetness of ripe fruit, the feel of grass beneath his feet, the scent of flowers at dawn. Enkidu was beginning to understand human emotions, joy, sorrow, empathy. But he also felt the sting of loss. On one visit back to the desert, he searched for the animals that had once been his friends, only to find them distant and wary. He realized that his transformation had come at a cost. "It's the price of growing," Shamhat explained gently. "But you are not alone. Now you have a new family and a new purpose." At last, the time came to journey to Uruk. Enkidu felt ready to see the great city he had heard so much about. As they neared its towering walls, his eyes widened in awe. The buildings loomed high, and the streets buzzed with life. The smells, the sounds, the colors, everything overwhelmed him, yet thrilled him at the same time. Shamhat led him through the markets, introducing him to artisans and merchants. He tasted exotic foods and marveled at objects he had never imagined. Though some townsfolk eyed him with suspicion or curiosity, most welcomed him thanks to Shamhat's presence. At the Temple of Anu, he watched as people brought offerings to the gods. Here, people seek guidance and protection, Shamhat explained. It's a sacred place where we honor those who created us. Enkidu felt his journey was only beginning. Each new experience enriched him, offering fresh insights into human life. Still, a relentless feeling stirred within him. He had heard of Gilgamesh, the mighty king of Uruk, and the harshness of his rule. Someone has to do something, he thought. He felt a pull, a need to confront the injustice he sensed. Shamhat, noticing the turmoil in his heart, said, "Perhaps that's the reason you've been brought here. But remember, strength isn't always the answer. Sometimes change begins with understanding and dialogue." Enkidu nodded, though deep down, he knew that fate was leading him toward an encounter he could not avoid. The transformation he had undergone was part of a greater plan. High above, the moon cast its silvery light over the towering walls of Uruk, bathing the city in a quiet, luminous glow. Enkidu, now familiar with human customs, yet still carrying the untamed spirit of the wild, walked steadily through the cobblestone streets, his heart pounded with a mix of curiosity and resolve. He had heard tales of Gilgamesh, the powerful king of Uruk, and how his arrogance and oppression weighed heavily on the people. Enkidu felt it was his duty to confront him, to restore balance, and to put an end to the injustice. Meanwhile, within the royal palace, Gilgamesh reveled in a grand banquet, surrounded by nobles and courtiers who praised his feat and fed his pride. He had caught wind of rumors about Enkidu, the wild man whose mere presence challenged his authority. "Who is this one who dares draw the attention that belongs to me?" he wondered, scowling. Determined to assert his dominance, Gilgamesh declared his intention to exercise his royal right to spend the first night with a bride at an upcoming wedding, a practice meant to affirm his absolute power, yet one that stirred bitterness among his people. When Enkidu heard of this, outrage welled up inside him. "I will not let this continue," he vowed. "No more abuse of those who cannot defend themselves." That same night, as the bride and groom's families prepared for the ceremony, Enkidu made his way toward the palace. The guards, startled by his imposing presence and the fierce determination in his eyes, hesitated to block his path. "I've come to speak with the king," he said, his voice steady. Without waiting for approval, he strode through the gates and entered the grand hall. Gilgamesh, spotting him from his throne, rose with a mixture of surprise and fury. "Who are you to barge into my palace unbidden?" he demanded. "I am Enkidu," the newcomer replied calmly, "and I have come to stop your injustices. I won't allow you to continue oppressing your own people." Silence fell across the chamber. The courtier stared wide-eyed, stunned that anyone would dare challenge the king so boldly. Gilgamesh narrowed his eyes, his anger flaring. "You are brave, but foolish. No one defies me without paying the price." Without warning, Gilgamesh charged toward Enkidu. The two men, equal in height and strength, met in the center of the hall, eye to eye. Their gazes clashed like lightning, and in that moment their fates were forever intertwined. What followed was a battle of epic proportions. The two titans clashed in a struggle that shook the very foundations of the palace. Each blow echoed like thunder. Every move displayed raw power and precision. The pillars trembled, and the torches flickered beneath the fury of their duel. Enkidu moved with the agility and endurance he had honed in the wild. He dodged with feline grace, striking back with the force of a charging bull. Gilgamesh, trained in the art of war, countered with skill and strategy, refined through countless victories. Their fight spilled into the streets of Uruk. People poured from their homes, astonished to see their king locked in combat with a mysterious challenger. Some watched with fear, others with rising hope. Whispers filled the air. Could this be the end of Gilgamesh's tyranny? At last, exhausted but unbroken, both warriors came to a halt. Their breathing was heavy, sweat streamed down their faces, and their muscles quivered from exertion. Yet, instead of hatred, something new flickered in their eyes. Mutual respect. Gilgamesh was the first to speak. "Never have I faced anyone like you," he said earnestly. "Your strength and courage are worthy of admiration." Enkidu nodded, acknowledging the king's qualities as well. You're not what I expected. Beneath the pride, I see the makings of true greatness." A silence settled between them, not tense, but filled with understanding. The meeting of two souls who, though different, shared a common spirit. Gilgamesh extended his hand. "Friend, let us be companions, not foes. Together we can achieve what no man ever dared to dream." Enkidu grasped his hand firmly. "I accept. Let us learn from one another and seek a purpose beyond ourselves." The citizens of Uruk watched the gesture with awe. News of their reconciliation spread swiftly, and a renewed sense of hope blossomed in the hearts of the people. Back at the palace, Gilgamesh ordered a feast to be prepared in Enkidu's honor. Seated side by side, the two shared stories and laughter. Gilgamesh spoke of his desire to leave a legacy that would endure for generations. Enkidu recounted his time in the wild, and how he had come to understand the value of simplicity and balance. "There is so much in the world we have yet to see," Gilgamesh reflected. "Perhaps, together, we could journey beyond the borders of Uruk and seek challenges worthy of us." Enkidu smiled. "I'd gladly join you in that quest. But first, you must earn the respect of your people. A king is nothing without those he serves." Gilgamesh nodded, recognizing the truth in his friend's words. "You're right. I've been blind to their needs. With your help, I will make things right." Thus, that night marked the beginning of a legendary friendship and the start of Gilgamesh's transformation. Enkidu's influence promised to guide him toward a path of justice and honor. In the days that followed, the two heroes walked the city together. Gilgamesh listened to his citizens' concerns and began introducing changes to improve their lives. Oppression gave way to cooperation, and Uruk began to flourish like never before. Bound by an unbreakable bond, the heroes stood ready to face whatever fate might bring, trusting that together, no challenge was insurmountable. Life in Uruk entered a time of peace. With the friendship between Gilgamesh and Enkidu firmly rooted, the king had started to rule with greater fairness toward his people. The streets bustled with life, and laughter echoed through the plazas. Yet, for two souls accustomed to thrill and adventure, daily routine began to feel uneventful. One evening, as the sun dipped beneath the horizon, Gilgamesh and Enkidu sat atop the city's towering walls. "My friend, do you feel it too?" Gilgamesh asked, breaking the silence. Enkidu turned toward him with curiosity. "What do you mean?" "This worry that consumes me," the king explained. "Even though Uruk prospers and its people live in peace, I feel an unfulfilled longing inside me. It's as if we're meant for something greater than simply enjoying everyday calm." Enkidu nodded slowly. "I know what you mean. The spirit always yearns to go beyond, to grow." Gilgamesh stood, his eyes shining with excitement. "I've been thinking of a way to leave a legacy that outlives us. Something that will secure our immortality in the memory of generations to come." "And what do you have in mind?" Enkidu asked, intrigued. "The Cedar Forest," Gilgamesh replied with resolve. "A magnificent woodland, where trees reach the heavens, guarded by the fearsome Humbaba, the protector appointed by the gods. If we defeat him and harvest those cedars, we can build monuments that will ensure our names are remembered forever." Enkidu's brow furrowed. "I've heard of Humbaba. They say his breath is fire, and his voice roars like a storm. He's a mighty creature, placed there by the gods to guard the sacred forest. Aren't you afraid of incurring his wrath, or worse, the gods' disapproval?" Gilgamesh smiled boldly. "The gods have favored us so far. We've proven ourselves worthy, and besides, what glory lies in turning away from challenge out of fear? If we want to be remembered, we must dare to do what no one else has." Enkidu gazed out at the horizon, deep in thought. Though he loved adventure, he also respected the divine forces of the world. I understand your desire, Gilgamesh, but we must weigh the consequences. Confronting Humbaba could bring divine wrath, not just upon us, but upon Uruk as well. It's a risk I'm willing to take, the king declared with conviction. I believe our strength and courage will lead us to triumph. I won't sit by as the years pass, leaving no lasting mark on the world. Both felt that fate was guiding them toward something monumental. News of their upcoming journey spread quickly through Uruk. Some citizens watched them prepare with pride, hoping their deeds would bring glory to the city. Others, fearful of divine retribution, whispered prayers for their safety. Before departing, they visited Ninsun, the mother of Gilgamesh, revered for her prophetic gifts. Ninsun performed a sacred ritual, burning aromatic herbs and chanting ancient hymns. My son, the paths you choose are filled with danger, but also with great possibility. I bless you and Enkidu, and I ask the gods to protect and guide you both. As a symbolic gesture, Ninsun adopted Enkidu as her own son, deepening the bond between the two heroes. On the morning of their departure, Gilgamesh and Enkidu bid farewell to Uruk under a clear, open sky. Joined by a select group of brave warriors, they set out toward the legendary cedar forest, the domain of the fearsome Humbaba. The early leagues of their journey were filled with laughter and camaraderie, but soon the landscape began to change. Fertile plains gave way to dry, mountainous terrain. The paths grew steep and rocky. The vegetation became scarce. The desert sun beat down on them mercilessly by day, while the nights brought biting cold. Though well-trained, the men began to feel the strain of the journey. Drawing on his deep knowledge of nature, Enkidu led the group, scouting safe trails and searching for water. This way, he said, pointing ahead. There's a valley where we can rest and replenish our supplies. One afternoon, as they passed through a narrow canyon, they were ambushed by a band of hostile nomads. From the heights above, the attackers hurled arrows and stones, taking advantage of the terrain. Watch out! Gilgamesh shouted, raising his shield to deflect the barrage. The battle that followed was fierce. Gilgamesh and Enkidu fought side by side, their bravery unwavering. Enkidu, nimble as a gazelle, climbed the rocky slopes to face the archers directly, while Gilgamesh held the ground below, his shining sword cutting through the attackers. Their men, inspired by the courage of their leaders, rallied together and drove the enemies away. After the skirmish, the group assessed their condition. Some had been wounded, but their spirits remained strong. This is only the beginning, Enkidu warned. We must remain vigilant. The path ahead is still long and full of danger. They pressed onward, venturing into shadowy forests where sunlight barely filtered through the canopy. Twisted trees loomed around them, and strange creatures stirred in the undergrowth, adding to the sense of unease. One night, they camped near a lake with dark, still waters. As they rested, eerie howls echoed through the trees, and branches cracked in the unseen darkness. "Something is watching us," one of the warriors whispered. Enkidu, sharpening his senses, nodded. "It's possible, but we must not show fear. Our strength lies in our unity and resolve." At dawn, they discovered their provisions had been raided, and some weapons were missing. "This forest is toying with us," Gilgamesh said, scowling. "We can't let it defeat us." They chose to move forward without delay. As they delved deeper into the unknown, the challengers grew harsher. They endured sudden storms, crossed swift and swollen rivers, and followed trails that seemed to shift like illusions. Yet with each trial, their determination only grew stronger. In a clearing, they found a cave that offered shelter. While the others rested, Enkidu scouted the area. He found ancient inscriptions etched into the cave walls, warning of mythical beasts and looming perils. "Others have been through here before us," he reported to Gilgamesh. "We must tread carefully." Gilgamesh studied the carvings and replied, "Then our names will join theirs. We will overcome these trials and reach our goal." The next leg of their journey led them through a narrow gorge. The ground was unstable, and the rocks above looked ready to fall at any moment. As they advanced, a tremor shook the earth. "Quickly! We must cross now!" Gilgamesh commanded. With coordinated effort and urgency, they reached the other side, just before a landslide sealed the pass behind them. At last, after many days of hardship, a new scent drifted on the breeze. The unmistakable fragrance of cedar. The landscape began to shift. Towering trees rose before them, and a mysterious mist cloaked the surroundings. "We've reached the gates of the cedar forest," Enkidu announced. The men gazed at the vast forest stretching out ahead with a mix of awe and unease. The treetops seemed to touch the sky, and a feeling of smallness swept over the group. Gilgamesh took a deep breath. "Our challenge is near. We'll rest here and prepare for whatever lies ahead." That night, they set up camp at the edge of the cedar forest. A central fire offered warmth and light as the men shared stories, trying to ease the tension that hung in the air. The silence of the forest was unsettling, broken only by the occasional snap of a branch or the whisper of wind through the leaves. After sharing a modest meal with his companions, Gilgamesh withdrew to his tent to rest. The fatigue of the journey weighed heavily on him. In his dream, he found himself climbing a massive mountain. The path was steep, riddled with obstacles. Suddenly, the ground beneath him gave way, and Gilgamesh plunged into a dark abyss. As he fell, ghostly figures reached out toward him, their faces twisted in pain. He woke with a jolt, his heart pounding. Sitting up, he stepped outside his tent in search of the cool night air. Enkidu, who was keeping watch, noticed his friend's distress. "What's wrong, Gilgamesh? You look unsettled." "I had a troubling dream," the king admitted. "It feels like a sign, but I don't know what it means." Enkidu gestured for him to sit by the fire. "Tell me your dream. Together we'll find its meaning." Gilgamesh recounted every detail: the mountain, the fall, the ghostly figures. Enkidu listened intently, nodding from time to time. When Gilgamesh finished, he paused, then spoke thoughtfully. "Dreams are messages from the gods," he said. "The mountain you climbed represents the challenge we face. The obstacles are trials we must overcome. The fall may symbolize your fears and doubts, but those figures, they aren't enemies. They are spirits warning you and offering guidance." "And what does it all mean?" Gilgamesh asked, still unsettled. "I believe the gods are telling us that while the path ahead will be difficult and full of danger, we are not alone. Your fall isn't a sign of failure, but a chance to grow stronger and wiser. We must stay alert and trust in our abilities." Gilgamesh nodded slowly. "Your words give me hope, but this isn't the first dream I've had. Last night I dreamt of a celestial bull that attacked us, one we defeated by fighting side by side." Enkidu smiled. "That's a good omen. The bull symbolizes a mighty force, perhaps Umbaba or another challenge ahead. The fact that we overcame it together shows that our unity is our greatest strength." The two friends fell silent for a while, watching the flames dance. Around them, the rest of the camp slept peacefully, unaware of their leader's worries. At dawn, before entering the forest, the warriors performed protective rituals, offering prayers to the gods. Enkidu, in tune with nature, asked the forest spirits for permission to pass. "We come with no ill will," he murmured to the wind. "We seek only to fulfill our destiny." The cedar forest loomed before them, massive, mysterious. Towering trees blocked the sunlight, casting the land in an eternal dusk. A thick mist clung to the ground, and the air was rich with the scent of the earth. "It's time," said Gilgamesh, placing a hand on Enkidu's shoulder. "Together, we move forward and face whatever lies ahead." "Remember," Enkidu warned softly, "stay sharp and don't stray. This is sacred ground known to no man." As they ventured deeper, the feeling of being watched grew stronger. Still, their confidence pushed them onward. The cedar forest stood towering before them, vast and awe-inspiring. The colossal trees rose like pillars supporting the sky, their crowns vanishing into the mist above. A supernatural stillness cloaked the forest, where every sound seemed to echo through the silence. Gilgamesh and Enkidu, flanked by their brave warriors, moved cautiously along barely visible paths, fully aware they were stepping into the domain of Humbaba, the guardian appointed by the gods to protect the sacred forest. As they pushed deeper into the dense woods, sunlight filtered faintly through the canopy, casting shifting shadows that seemed to stir with life. The air was thick with strange, unfamiliar scents, and an unshakable feeling of being watched crept over the group. Enkidu sensed Humbaba's looming presence. "He's close," he whispered to Gilgamesh. "He feels our intrusion. He's preparing to strike." Suddenly, a deafening roar shattered the forest's stillness, shaking the earth beneath their feet. Animals scattered in panic, and flocks of birds burst skyward in chaos. From within the mist emerged the fearsome figure of Humbaba. Towering and monstrous, he looked like a being forged from the wildest nightmares, his face a twisted blend of savage beasts. His eyes glowed like embers, and each breath released a noxious vapor that blackened the leaves in its path.
"Who dares defile my forest?"
he thundered, his voice rumbling like it rose from the bowels of the earth.
"Foolish mortals, this is your end."
Gilgamesh stepped forward, gripping his sword tightly. "I am Gilgamesh, king of Uruk. I've come seeking glory and the sacred wood of the cedars. I fear no guardian." Enkidu stood beside him. "Humbaba, we have come to challenge you, but we also give you a chance. Let us pass peacefully." The giant let out a laugh that cracked like thunder.
"Arrogant fools, there is no passage for you here. Your audacity will be punished."
Without warning, Humbaba charged. His massive arm swung down, slamming the ground, and unleashing a shockwave that sent several warriors sprawling. Gilgamesh and Enkidu narrowly avoided the blow, but at that moment they understood. They were facing a force unlike anything they had ever encountered. Gilgamesh, showcasing his skill and courage, launched swift strikes, aiming for any vulnerable spot he could find. Enkidu used his agility to his advantage, darting in to strike and retreating before Humbaba could land a blow. The other warriors tried to help, but the Guardian's sheer power kept them at bay. Humbaba unleashed his 7 auras of terror, each more overwhelming than the last. A heavy darkness blanketed the forest, and a freezing wind slashed at their skin like blades. Fear seeped into the hearts of the men, freezing them in place. Gilgamesh shouted to rally them. "Do not give in to fear! We are stronger together!" Yet, despite their courage, Humbaba seemed unbeatable. Every wound they inflicted healed quickly, and his fury only grew more intense. In a critical moment, the Guardian managed to separate Gilgamesh and Enkidu, turning all his focus on the king of Uruk. With terrifying speed, he caught Gilgamesh between his massive hands, ready to crush him.
This is your end, mortal,
Humbaba declared with grim satisfaction. Desperate, Gilgamesh called out to Shamash, god of the sun and justice. "O Shamash, in whom I trust, aid me in this dark hour. Do not let the shadows overcome the light." In answer to his plea, a brilliant ray of sunlight pierced through the clouded-covered sky, blinding Humbaba for an instant. Seizing the moment, Enkidu rushed to his friend's side, and with all his strength struck Humbaba's knee, forcing him to release Gilgamesh. Hearing the hero's cries, Shamash sent 7 mighty winds to aid them. The winds swirled around Humbaba, trapping and restraining him. He struggled fiercely, but even his immense strength could not overpower the divine forces. "Now's our chance!" Gilgamesh shouted, gripping his sword once more. Side by side with Enkidu, he launched into battle with renewed resolve. Their blows landed true, and the giant began to show signs of weakening. Sensing that his end was near, Humbaba's tone changed.
"Stop!
He pleaded, his voice trembling.
Spare me, and I will serve you. The gods will reward your mercy."
Moved by the Guardian's words, Enkidu turned to Gilgamesh. "Perhaps we should spare him. He could be useful, and showing mercy would honor the gods." But Gilgamesh, fearing Humbaba might regain his strength, decided they couldn't take that risk. "We can't trust his promises. If we let him live, he may seek revenge. We must finish what we started." With one final effort, the 2 heroes delivered the fatal blow. Humbaba collapsed, and his massive body shook the earth as it hit the ground. Before drawing his last breath, Humbaba locked eyes with them.
"You of defeating me, but your victory will come at a cost. The gods will not overlook this. You have defied their will. Their wrath will find you. Remember that.
The warriors of Uruk stood stunned, unsure whether to rejoice or fear what had just occurred. Enkidu felt a mix of triumph and guilt. "Perhaps we've gone too far," he murmured. "Baba was the guardian chosen by the gods. By killing him, we may have disturbed the natural order." Gilgamesh, aware of the potential consequences, tried to lift their spirits. "What's done is done. We've proven our bravery and secured the cedar wood. With it, we'll build monuments that will glorify Uruk and the gods themselves." Still, both men felt a lingering unease. Baba's final words echoed in their minds, a warning that their actions might have unleashed something unforeseen. With solemnity, they ordered their men to bury the guardian. Though he had been their foe, they honored his strength and the role he had served. Then, they began harvesting the cedars, choosing the finest trunks to carry back to Uruk. As they worked, the forest seemed to grieve. The wind whispered through the trees like a mournful sigh, and the sunlight faded, casting the land into shadow. From a distance, the animals watched, their eyes filled with sorrow. When the work was done, the warriors loaded the cedar logs onto their carts and began the journey home. The return was quiet, filled with heavy thoughts and reflection. As the sun rose over the horizon, Gilgamesh and Enkidu, leading their company, caught sight of Uruk's towering walls. The long shadows of morning stretched across the dusty road, and a cool breeze hinted at a promising day. From the watchtowers, the sentinels recognized the heroes. The city gate swung open wide, and excitement rippled through the streets. Men, women, and children poured out of their homes, abandoning their chores to gather in the square. "Gilgamesh and Enkidu have returned!" The voices rang out. Drums thundered, and flutes played festive tunes. Flowers rained down from balconies, and the air filled with the scent of incense. Joy radiated through the city. With his head held high and a calm smile, Gilgamesh greeted his people with regal grace. Enkidu, walking beside him, was moved by the warmth of the welcome. For someone who had once known only the solitude of the wilderness, this show of collective affection was deeply touching. Behind them, the carts rolled slowly, heavy with cedar logs. The reddish wood, rich in scent, gleamed in the sunlight. Citizens marveled at the prized cargo, knowing the value of those trees that grew only in far-off lands. At the heart of the city, in the grand plaza before the Temple of Anu, a platform had been raised and adorned with banners. There, the city's elders waited to offer their formal welcome. Ninsun, Gilgamesh's mother, stood among them, her expression full of maternal pride. The crowd erupted in cheers. Gilgamesh raised his hand to call for silence. "People of Uruk, it is an honor to stand among you once more. Our expedition has been a success. We bring back the cedar wood and stories to share. This achievement belongs to the whole city that believed in us." Enkidu spoke next, his voice steady yet humble. "I've learned much on this journey about the world around us and the value of community. Uruk is a special place, and I feel fortunate to be part of it." The citizens, moved by the words of both heroes, erupted once again in joyful applause. During the celebration, artisans and builders approached Gilgamesh to discuss plans for construction using the cedar brought back from the forest. "With this wood," one architect declared, "we can raise temples and palaces that will withstand the passage of time and become the envy of all other cities." Gilgamesh nodded, thrilled by the vision of beautifying Uruk and leaving behind a lasting legacy. "I want to build a new temple in honor of the gods and strengthen our city walls to protect our people. Every piece of wood will be used for the good of all." The triumphant return of Gilgamesh and Enkidu marked a turning point in Uruk's history. The structures built from the forest's cedars adorned the city and bolstered its defenses. Yet, on the horizon, fate continued to weave its threads. New challenges awaited the heroes. After their victorious return, Uruk flourished like never before. Ishtar, goddess of love and war, watched from the heavens as Gilgamesh's fame grew. Renowned for her unmatched beauty and her power over mortals and gods alike, Ishtar found herself intrigued by the king. His courage, strength, and unwavering spirit had captured her attention. "No mortal has ever achieved so much," she thought. "This Gilgamesh is worthy of my gaze." Determined to meet him, Ishtar descended to the earth in a radiant form, a divine blend of celestial grace and human allure. Her arrival in Uruk did not go unnoticed. Flowers bloomed in her wake, and the air filled with a sweet, enchanting fragrance. The people bowed in reverence, recognizing her divinity. When Gilgamesh learned of such an illustrious visitor, he made preparations to receive her at the palace. Dressed in his finest robes, flanked by Enkidu and his court, he waited with keen curiosity. When Ishtar entered the grand hall, everyone was struck with awe. Her eyes sparkled like stars, and her voice flowed like birdsong at dawn. "Greetings, Gilgamesh," she said with a captivating smile. "I've come to personally congratulate you on the greatness of your kingdom." Gilgamesh bowed his head respectfully. "It is an honor to welcome you to Uruk, great goddess Ishtar. Your words are a blessing upon my people." During the banquet held in her honor, Ishtar watched Gilgamesh with growing fascination. She admired his regal bearing, the wisdom in his words, and the passion with which he spoke of his future endeavors. As the evening wore on, the goddess chose to reveal her intentions. "Gilgamesh," Ishtar began, stepping closer to him, "I have witnessed your achievements and the prosperity you've brought to Uruk. You are a king like no other. Your fame has traveled far beyond these lands. I've come to propose something that would benefit both mortals and gods." The king met her gaze. "I am willing to hear your words, goddess." Ishtar's smile softened. "I want you to be my husband. Together, we would unite the divine and the mortal. I would grant you unimaginable wealth, dominion over nations, and the favor of the gods. Peoples across the world would revere us. Our legacy would be eternal." The hall fell into silence. Everyone present awaited Gilgamesh's response with bated breath. It was a tempting offer, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that many would accept without hesitation. Gilgamesh thought carefully before speaking. He was well aware of the stories surrounding Ishtar, of her former lovers and their fates. He also understood the weight his decision could carry. "Great goddess Ishtar, your offer honors me, and I am flattered by your interest. Yet I must decline. My loyalty belongs to my people, and to the responsibilities I have embraced as king. I fear that our union, though powerful, may not be wise in the long run. We are of different natures." Ishtar blinked, stunned by the refusal. She was not used to rejection, especially from a mortal. "You dare to refuse me," she said in disbelief. "Do you not see the advantages this union would bring?" Gilgamesh stood firm. "I understand what you offer, but I also know the stories of those who came before me. Many met unfortunate ends. I do not wish to become another. I would rather honor and revere you as a goddess, without binding myself to a fate that could bring sorrow." Ishtar's expression shifted. Surprise gave way to fury. Her once warm eyes now burned with light. "Insolent!" she thundered. "How dare you speak to me that way? I am Ishtar, queen of the heavens. No mortal has ever spurned me without facing the consequences." The atmosphere in the hall grew tense. Courtiers stepped back, fearful of the goddess's wrath, and Enkidu moved closer to Gilgamesh, ready to defend him if needed. Ishtar's voice rose sharply. "If you refuse my hand, you will know my fury. I will make you regret this day, and Uruk will bear the weight of my anger." Without waiting for a reply, The goddess turned and stormed out of the palace, leaving a heavy silence in her wake. Flowers withered in her path, and the air grew thick and oppressive. Gilgamesh exhaled, well aware of the consequences his decision might bring. Enkidu placed a hand on his shoulder. "You spoke from your heart, but we must be ready. Ishtar is powerful. She will not take this rejection lightly." The king nodded. "I know, my friend, but I couldn't go against my beliefs. Now we must stay vigilant and protect our people from whatever may come." Meanwhile, high in the heavens, Ishtar ascended in a fury to the dwelling place of the gods. Her wounded pride fed her thirst for revenge. "Father Anu," she cried as she reached the celestial throne, "Gilgamesh has insulted me. He rejected my proposal and humiliated me. I demand justice." Anu, the supreme god, looked at his daughter with calm deliberation. "What is it you seek, Ishtar?" "I want to release the bowl of heaven against Gilgamesh and Uruk. Let them feel the might of the gods and learn never to challenge our will." Anu considered her request carefully. "The bowl of heaven is a force of destruction. If I release it, many lives will be lost. Are you certain this is what you want?" "Yes," Ishtar replied without hesitation. "It is the only way to restore my honor and teach a lesson to those who defy me." Though reluctant, Anu agreed to grant his daughter's wish. "Very well, but remember, every action has its price. So be it." Back in Uruk, the skies began to darken. Thick black clouds gathered, and the wind howled with unnatural force. Citizens looked to the heavens in fear, sensing that something dangerous was drawing near. Gilgamesh and Enkidu gathered with the city's advisors and priests. "We must prepare," the king declared. "Ishtar has revealed her wrath. She may attempt to strike us. Let's fortify our defenses and protect our people." Anu sighed, aware that denying Ishtar could make matters worse. "Very well," he conceded at last. "I will give you the bowl of heaven, but you must be ready to face the consequences." With a cold smile, Ishtar accepted the bowl of heaven. A celestial creature of immense power and fury was released from its bindings. Its eyes burned with intense fire, and each step it took made the ground tremble. Ishtar led the beast toward the earth, pointing the way to Uruk. In the city, the people went about their daily lives, unaware of the danger looming on the horizon. Suddenly, the bowl of heaven appeared, striding forward with thunderous steps that shook the earth. Its snorts were like gusts of violent wind, and flames burst from its nostrils, scorching everything in its path. Reaching the outskirts of Uruk, it let out a deafening roar and began its assault. Crops withered, rivers dried up, and huge cracks split the earth, swallowing all in their path. Panic swept through the citizens as they ran in every direction seeking shelter. Temples overflowed with people praying for deliverance. Upon hearing of the catastrophe, Gilgamesh and Enkidu reconvened in the palace. "This is Ishtar's doing," Enkidu said with resolve. "She unleashed the bowl of heaven to take revenge on you and punish Uruk." Gilgamesh nodded, his face grave. "We must act at once. I will not allow my people to suffer for my choices. Enkidu, once again, we must fight side by side." Armed with their finest weapons and protected by armor blessed in sacred rites, the two heroes set out to confront the bowl. Upon arriving, they were met with scenes of devastation. Yet undeterred, they moved forward with unshakable courage. When the bowl of heaven spotted them, it charged with explosive rage. Gilgamesh and Enkidu split apart, trying to disorient the beast. Enkidu, swift and nimble, drew its attention, dodging the powerful strikes. "Gilgamesh, now!" Enkidu shouted, barely dodging a brutal strike. Seizing the moment, Gilgamesh leapt onto the bull's back, gripping its thick hide tightly. The beast bucked and thrashed wildly, trying to shake him off. With immense effort, Gilgamesh held on as Enkidu approached from the front. "We have to finish this together!" Gilgamesh called out. Displaying his incredible strength, Enkidu grabbed the bull by its horns, holding it still for a brief instant. "Now, Gilgamesh!" he urged. With a sharp blade in hand, Gilgamesh struck the creature at its weakest point, delivering a decisive blow. The bowl of heaven let out a harrowing roar that echoed across the land. Its strength drained rapidly, and it collapsed to the earth with a thunderous crash. All of Uruk fell silent. Peering out cautiously, the citizens saw their hero standing beside the fallen beast. A wave of relief swept through the city. Drums sounded, and voices rose in jubilant celebration. From the celestial walls, Ishtar watched in fury as her creature lay defeated. She descended to earth and stood atop Uruk's ramparts, her voice filled with rage as she cursed Gilgamesh and Enkidu. "Cursed be the both of you," she screamed. "You have slain the bowl of heaven. You will suffer. My vengeance has only just begun." Enkidu, burning with anger, shouted back at the goddess. "If you bring harm upon us, we will endure the cost, but we will never bow to your unjust wrath." But Ishtar refused to listen. With a scornful glance, she turned away, leaving the heroes beneath a growing sense of unease. "We've accomplished a great feat," said Gilgamesh. "But we can't ignore her warning. We must be ready for what lies ahead." Enkidu nodded. "Whatever we face it together, my friend. No matter what comes, we stand united." Far above in the heavens, the gods convened in a grand council to deliberate the actions of Gilgamesh and Enkidu. Anu, father of the gods, presided over the divine assembly as Ishtar demanded justice for the offense she had endured. "These mortals have dared to defy our will," Ishtar declared with fiery conviction. "They have slain the bowl of heaven, a sacred creature. Will we allow such insolence to go unpunished?" Enlil, god of air and storms, nodded gravely. Their actions cannot go unanswered. They have disrupted the balance between the divine and the mortal. Shamash, god of the sun and protector of Gilgamesh, spoke in the hero's defense. They acted to protect their people. Should we not show them mercy? But Anu, his face unreadable, pronounced judgment. The death of the bull of heaven is a grave offense. One of them must pay with his life to restore the balance. After deliberation, the gods decreed that Enkidu would bear the punishment. He was created to temper Gilgamesh, Enlil said. Now he has exceeded that purpose. Meanwhile, in Uruk, Gilgamesh and Enkidu were celebrating their victory, unaware of the verdict looming over them. That night, Enkidu began to have disturbing dreams. He stood before the gods, who gazed at him with disapproval. A shadowy figure, the messenger of death, guided him toward the underworld, a realm of darkness where lost souls wandered aimlessly. He awoke with a jolt, heart pounding. Gilgamesh, he called out. I had a terrible dream. The gods are angry with us. Gilgamesh tried to comfort him. It was only a nightmare, brother. Shamash protects us. Don't be afraid. But Enkidu couldn't shake the sense of looming misfortune. The next day, he began to feel weak. A fierce fever overtook him, draining his usual strength. Healers and priests were summoned, but none could ease his suffering. Confined to his bed, Enkidu reflected on their deeds. Perhaps the gods punished me for the deaths of Humbaba and the Bull of Heaven, he said aloud. I've defied the divine order. Gilgamesh, stricken with anguish at the sight of his friend's pain, sought answers desperately. I'll go to the temple and offer sacrifices. I'll beg the gods to forgive you and restore your health. Yet, with each passing day, Enkidu grew weaker. In moments of clarity, he shared his thoughts with Gilgamesh. Last night, I dreamt I was in the underworld, he whispered, his voice faint. Everything was cloaked in shadow. I don't want to leave yet. Gilgamesh gripped his hand. Don't speak of that. You'll recover. You're strong, Enkidu. But deep down, Enkidu knew his time was running out. If this is my end, know that our friendship has been the most precious part of my life. Together, we lived adventures others can only dream of. The nights stretched long and silent. Enkidu had visions of the underworld. He saw kings and heroes of the past, all made equal in death, stripped of glory and recognition. Death is the great equalizer, he pondered. What value do our feats hold, if in the end we all meet the same fate? After 12 days of illness, Enkidu felt his strength slip away. Gilgamesh, he murmured, my time is almost gone. Promise me you'll remember our journey and that you'll search for answers to life's great mystery. With tears in his eyes, Gilgamesh replied, "I promise you, brother, I will make sure your name lives on forever. I won't forget you." With one last look of gratitude, Enkidu closed his eyes and took his final breath. Silence fell over the room. Gilgamesh sat beside him, unable to accept the truth. News of Enkidu's death spread through Uruk. The people mourned the loss of one of their heroes, but no one grieved as deeply as Gilgamesh. "Why, O gods, have you taken my friend?" he cried to the heavens. "Why must death claim the just? If my fate is to die too, then what's the point of it all?" Enkidu's death forced Gilgamesh to confront his own mortality. Fear of death consumed him. He knew he could not remain idle. "I will find a way to defeat death," he vowed. "If there is a secret, some path to immortality, I will discover it." With that resolve, Gilgamesh prepared for a new journey, one that would take him to the edge of the known world in search of Utnapishtim, the only mortal granted eternal life by the gods. The death of Enkidu marked a turning point in Gilgamesh's life. He was no longer the proud, self-assured king he had once been. Now he was a man haunted by existential questions, ready to defy the impossible in search of answers. The king who once strode proudly through the streets of Uruk now wandered aimlessly, his face gaunt and his eyes hollow. The nights were especially tormenting. Gilgamesh often stood atop the city walls, staring into the distance, pondering the meaning of life and the inevitability of death. "If Enkidu, my brother, could be torn from this world," he asked in anguish, "what hope do I have of escaping the same fate?" Advisors and priests tried to lift his spirits, reminding him of his duties as king. "Your Majesty, your people need you. Uruk flourishes under your reign," they said. But their words fell on deaf ears. Gilgamesh had only one thought in mind: to escape the destiny that awaited him. One day, he realized he could not go on his way. He summoned his mother, Ninsun, and confided in her. "Mother, I've decided to set out in search of Utnapishtim, the only man the gods have granted immortality. I must find him and learn his secret to avoid the fate that claimed Enkidu." Ninsun, her eyes filled with concern, tried to dissuade him. "My son, the path you seek is filled with unimaginable danger. Utnapishtim lives beyond the waters of death, in a place no mortal has ever reached. Are you certain you want to undertake this journey?" "Yes, mother," Gilgamesh replied with unwavering resolve. "I would rather face any trial than passively accept my end. If there's any chance of eternal life, I must pursue it. Without delay, Gilgamesh prepared for his journey. He left behind his crown and royal robes, carrying only what was essential: a bow, a sword, and the determination burning in his heart. The people of Uruk watched him depart with heavy hearts, aware that their king was venturing into the unknown. His first challenge was to cross the twin mountains known as Mashu, which marked the boundary between the mortal world and distant, uncharted lands. These mountains were guarded by giant scorpion beings, fearsome creatures with human heads and scorpion bodies, whose eyes could see into the depths of the underworld. As he approached the mountains, Gilgamesh was confronted by one of the guardians. "Halt, mortal," the creature commanded in a deep voice. "No man has ever crossed these mountains. What is your purpose?" "I seek Utnapishtim, the one who has gained immortality," Gilgamesh replied without hesitation. "I must learn his secret to escape the death that awaits all men." The Scorpion Guardian studied him carefully. "The path you wish to take is perilous, meant only for gods, but I see in you a rare determination. If you are willing to risk everything, I will let you pass. Know this, you will face absolute darkness and trials that will test your very soul." "I am ready," said Gilgamesh with conviction. With the Guardian's permission, he entered the tunnel that cut through the Mashu Mountains. For 12 leagues, he walked in complete darkness, unable to tell day from night. The silence was crushing. Only the sound of his own footsteps kept him company. At last, a faint light began to appear, and he emerged into a landscape of indescribable beauty. Beyond the mountains, Gilgamesh found himself in a marvelous garden. The trees bore gems instead of fruit, and the ground sparkled with the glow of precious stones. Yet his wonder did not distract him from his quest. He pressed on until he reached the shore of a vast sea. There he encountered Suduri, a divine tavern keeper who guarded the coast. Seeing a man clothed in animal skins with a grief-stricken face, she took pity on him. "Who are you, and why do you carry such despair?" she asked. "I am Gilgamesh, king of Uruk. I seek Utnapishtim to learn the secret of immortality. I've lost my friend and fear for my own life." Suduri looked at him with compassion. "Gilgamesh, the path you seek is dangerous, and perhaps in vain. Why not accept the fate shared by all men? Enjoy life. Eat, drink, and be happy. That is the best way to honor your friend." But Gilgamesh, unwavering in his resolve, replied, "I cannot accept that. My heart won't rest until I find answers. Please, tell me how to cross these waters." Suduri sighed and finally gave in. "Very well. To cross the Sea of Death, you must find Urshanabi, the boatman of Utnapishtim. He will help you reach your destination." Following her directions, Gilgamesh entered a forest where he found Urshanabi, who was busy gathering strange plants and didn't notice the king's arrival until he spoke. "Are you Urshanabi?" The boatman of Utnapishtim? Asked Gilgamesh. The man, startled, nodded. Who are you, and what do you seek? I am Gilgamesh. I need to reach Utnapishtim to learn the secret of immortality. Urshanabi eyed him with skepticism. The journey is perilous. The waters we must cross are deadly to the touch. But if you're truly determined, I will help you. However, you've destroyed the sacred stone things simply by walking here. They were essential for the voyage. You'll need to cut 120 long poles to replace them. Without hesitation, Gilgamesh did as instructed. Together they readied the boat and set out across the Sea of Death. Urshanabi warned him, Don't touch the water. Use these poles to push us forward. Discard each one once it becomes soaked. With each pole spent, they drew closer to their goal. At last, after a grueling journey, they saw a lone island appear on the horizon. The place where Utnapishtim lived. Upon landing, Gilgamesh found himself face to face with a man of calm and wisdom, who studied him with quiet interest. Who is this that has crossed the waters of death and arrived here? Utnapishtim asked. I am Gilgamesh, king of Uruk. I've come to find you and learn the secret of eternal life. I lost my friend, and I can't bear the thought of facing the same end. Utnapishtim invited him to sit beneath the shade of the tree. You've traveled far and overcome great trials. Tell me about your journey and what has brought you to this place. Gilgamesh spoke in detail of his adventures, from Enkidu's death to the many hardships he'd faced along the way. When he finished, Utnapishtim sat in silence for a moment before responding. Gilgamesh, all mortals must face death. It is the fate the gods have given to humankind. I was granted immortality under extraordinary circumstances, but it is not something easily bestowed. Then there is no hope for me? Gilgamesh asked, his voice heavy with despair. There may be a way to better understand the nature of life and death, Utnapishtim replied enigmatically. But first, you must prove your worth and learn the lessons that existence has to offer. A flicker of hope returned to Gilgamesh's eyes. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Utnapishtim nodded slowly. Very well. I will tell you my story, but you must listen carefully, for within it lies the wisdom you seek. The old man fixed his gaze on the horizon as if reliving distant memories. Long ago, the gods decided to send a great flood to cleanse the earth and wipe out humanity, which had fallen into corruption and chaos. The god Ea, moved by compassion, warned me in a dream about the impending disaster. He instructed me to build a vast boat and to bring aboard my family, along with members of every living creature. Gilgamesh listened intently, captivated by every word. Utnapishtim continued. I worked without rest, following the exact measurements given to me. When the time came, the waters swallowed the land. For 7 days and 7 nights, the storm raged without end. Everything was submerged beneath the depths. And how did you survive? Gilgamesh asked, fascinated. When the waters finally began to recede, our boat came to rest on the peak of a lonely mountain. Though all around us stretched a sea without end, no land in sight. My wife and children looked out at the horizon and saw the shadow of the end, convinced that only a few more sunrises remained for us. In Utnapishtim's eyes, despair and hope mingled, a contrast that spoke of struggle and endurance. First, I released a dove, but it returned. Then I let loose a swallow, but it too came back. As a final hope, I sent out a raven, and it never returned, so I knew it had found dry land. Was that when you were granted immortality? Gilgamesh asked. Utnapishtim nodded. The gods gathered, and though at first they were furious that a mortal had escaped their judgment, they eventually honored my devotion and the courage my family showed in the face of despair. Enlil, god of the air, granted my wife and me eternal life, lifting us into an existence beyond human understanding. Gilgamesh sat and thought, so, I must face a flood like yours to earn immortality? Utnapishtim offered a gentle smile. No, young king. Every life follows its own course, unrepeatable and unique. Each of us sails a different sea, facing our own storms and skies. Do not search in another story for answers that only your own path can reveal. Gilgamesh's eyes were fixed on Utnapishtim, filled with a childlike reverence. At that moment, the old man appeared the true sovereign, and Gilgamesh, merely a young seeker, desperate for answers. Is there any way to gain immortality on my path? Gilgamesh asked. Utnapishtim continued. Life and death are part of the natural order set by the gods. To try and change that is to defy their will. I can't accept that, Gilgamesh insisted. There must be a way. If you received it, why can't I? The old man looked at him with deep compassion. Perhaps you must prove your resolve and understand the limits of human nature. I offer you a test. If you can stay awake for 6 days and 7 nights, you will show that you are worthy to learn the secret of immortality. Gilgamesh, confident in his strength and willpower, accepted without hesitation. I will do it. I won't let sleep defeat me. Utnapishtim led him to a peaceful place where the sound of waves and birdsong created a soothing atmosphere. Here you will sit. My wife and I will witness your effort. The king settled in, determined to pass the trial. The first hours passed easily. He kept his eyes open, focusing on his thoughts and the goal ahead. But as time went on, fatigue crept in. His eyelids grew heavy, and the calm of his surroundings beckoned him to rest. Without realizing it, Gilgamesh drifted into sleep. When he opened his eyes again, the gentle gaze of Utnapishtim and his wife greeted him like a soft awakening. "How long have I been asleep?" he asked, dreading the answer. "You slept soundly for 7 days, worn out by the journey that brought you here," Utnapishtim replied. "Sleep is an inescapable need for mortals. You have failed the test." A wave of despair washed over Gilgamesh. "It can't be. I was certain I could succeed." "Understand this, Gilgamesh," the old man said. "Immortality is not meant for humans. Even the greatest heroes must accept their mortality. But that doesn't mean your life lacks meaning. Its true value lies in its impermanence." The king sat in silence, absorbing the words. "Then there is no hope for me." Utnapishtim paused in thought. With a sigh, he said, "There is a plant at the bottom of the ocean known as the old woman who makes young again. Its properties can restore youth to one who possesses it. If you can retrieve it, perhaps you will find some comfort." With a spark of hope, Gilgamesh resolved to try. Utnapishtim warned him, "The path is dangerous. The plant is guarded by the deep and the creatures of the sea. But if you are truly determined, I will tell you how to reach it." Armed with stones to weigh himself down, Gilgamesh dove into the ocean. He descended slowly, fighting the crushing pressure and the enveloping darkness. After a long and grueling search, he finally found the plant, glowing in the depths like a star. He emerged from the water triumphant. "I have it!" he shouted, feeling his effort had at last been rewarded. Back on the shore, he chose to rest before testing the plant. "I'll bring it back to Uruk and share its power with my people," he thought generously. While he slept, a serpent, drawn by the plant's scent, crept in silently and devoured it. As it did, it shed its skin and was renewed, slithering swiftly out of sight. When Gilgamesh awoke and discovered what had happened, he dropped to his knees in despair. "All my efforts have been for nothing. Immortality slips through my fingers." He returned to Utnapishtim, who greeted him with understanding. "Now you see, Gilgamesh, the pursuit of immortality is futile. You must accept your place in the world. Cherish the time you've been given." The king of Uruk, though heavy-hearted, began to grasp the wisdom in the old man's words. "Maybe true immortality lies in what we leave behind, in how we're remembered," he said. "Exactly," Utnapishtim replied. "Return to your home. Be a just and compassionate king. Build and protect, so your name endures through the generations." With a new perspective, Gilgamesh began his journey back to Uruk. Though he had not gained physical immortality, he had found something far greater, a deep understanding of his own humanity and the true meaning of his existence. As he walked away, Utnapishtim watched him fade into the horizon, knowing the young kid had taken a crucial step in his personal transformation. The outward quest had ended, but Gilgamesh's true inner journey was just beginning. The sun dipped low in the sky as Gilgamesh, weary yet calm, approached the towering walls of Uruk. It had been a long return, one traveled not only across the land, but through the depths of his soul. The city's ancient stones glowed in the evening light, and from afar, the hum of everyday life drifted toward him. When I am gone, life will continue. The children of my children will one day forget me, Gilgamesh reflected. As he drew near, the people of Uruk began to recognize their king. Some paused in surprise, seeing him dressed simply without the symbols of royalty, wearing an expression of quiet reflection they had never seen before. The respect he now commanded felt genuine, profound. Children pointed with curiosity, and elders whispered among themselves. Gilgamesh sought neither applause nor praise. His thoughts were fixed on all he had come to understand. He climbed slowly up the steps leading to the great walls, those same walls he had helped build, symbols of greatness of his reign. From the top he looked out over the city, the streets bustling with life, the lively markets and the temples rising proudly in honor of the gods. "These walls," he said aloud, "are more than defenses. They are the legacy I leave my people. My time in this world is finite, and my memory may fade, but my works will live on through the generations." He recalled Utnapishtim's words and the lessons learned on his long and humbling journey. He understood that the immortality he had longed for was not about escaping physical death, but about the impact one makes in life. By embracing his humanity, he found a peace that had once eluded him. At that moment, he felt a familiar presence beside him. Turning his head, he saw, in his imagination, Enkidu, smiling at him. "You found what you were searching for, my friend. Peace has come to you. You now understand the meaning of life," he seemed to say. Gilgamesh returned the smile gently, knowing that although Enkidu was no longer with him in body, his spirit would forever live in his heart. He descended from the city walls and chose to walk through the streets of Uruk as an ordinary citizen. He watched artisans working with care, merchants offering their goods, mothers tending to their children. Every face held a story, a life thread woven into the fabric of the city. The counselors and priests, upon hearing of his return, approached him with respect. "Your Majesty, it brings us joy to see you home. Uruk has thrived, but your guidance has been missed," they said earnestly. Gilgamesh met their eyes with gratitude. "I have been gone, not just in distance, but in spirit. I return with a renewed heart and a deeper understanding of my duty as king. Now is the time to serve my people with wisdom and humility." He called an assembly in the city's main square, where citizens of all ages and trades gathered to hear their ruler. Climbing a simple platform, Gilgamesh spoke in a clear and sincere voice. "People of Uruk, I have traveled far beyond our borders in search of truth and faced trials I could never have imagined. In my quest for immortality, I have learned that true meaning is not found in avoiding death, but in how we live each day and in the legacy we leave behind in others. I promise to rule with justice, to listen to your voices, and to work alongside you to build a prosperous future. I will honor the memory of all who have shaped our greatness. Together, we will make Uruk a city that endures, etched not only in stone, but in the hearts of those who come after us." His words struck a deep chord in the crowd. A wave of heartfelt applause rose among the people. Many felt that something had changed within their king, a transformation that signaled a brighter era ahead. In the days that followed, Gilgamesh devoted himself to reforms that uplifted the people. He established schools to promote learnings, initiated major infrastructure projects, and encouraged the flourishing of art and culture. One afternoon, as he strolled through the palace gardens, he paused beneath a leafy tree. Closing his eyes, he took a deep breath, feeling the cool air and the warmth of the sun on his skin. For the first time in a long time, he felt at peace with himself and with the world. "This is the true meaning of life," he reflected. "It's not the length of our days that matters, but the quality of our actions and the love we share." Poets began composing new epics that told of Gilgamesh's heroic deeds, his transformation, and the wisdom he gained. Though Gilgamesh had accepted that his fate was to be forgotten, the tales of his adventures and the lessons he learned were passed down from generation to generation. At the end of his days, Gilgamesh departed this world surrounded by his people, having found immortality in the lives he touched and the city he helped build. His name became a symbol of greatness, and humanity forever remembered in the pages of history.